increased down here. You too.
I went to put on my speaker and picking it up. You guys sit down real quick. Yeah, I get it. You guys pull it on.
In June of 1914, a pistol shot rang out throughout Europe. It was this shot that would change the world. With the death of Archduke Ferdinand in World War I, all of Europe broke out into World War I. This upcoming November will be the 100-year anniversary of the signing of the armistice ending World War I. Many new artillery and fighting styles were introduced during this great war that would help to transition the world into a more modern style of combat as seen in World War II and later wars. The three major aspects that helped to make World War I increasingly modern and unique were trench warfare, U-boats, and airplanes. The first major aspect that helped to make World War I increasingly modern was trench warfare. Both sides dug many miles of trenches that were outlined with barbed wire and machine guns. The deadly zone in between these 2 miles of trenches was called no man's land. Trenches also harbored many diseases which were caused by rats and sitting water. The Germans also introduced poison gas, also known as tear gas, which made trench warfare very deadly. The British introduced the tank in 1916, reducing the effectiveness of trenches. A tank could attack a trench line without bringing as many casualties to their own soldiers. The Germans introduced Big Bertha, which could bomb 75 miles away. However, combat during World War I was not only kept on land, but was also introduced on the sea. The second major aspect that helped to make World War I increasingly modern and unique was U-boats. During the Civil War, the Americans introduced a ship called the Monitor, which was partially submerged. However, it was the Germans that first invented and used a ship that was completely submerged, called an undersea boat or a U-boat. These ships were very effective because they could torpedo and sink a ship without harming them themselves. They limited the men and supplies going into inland Europe. It was a U-boat that changed the course of World War I. When a U-boat sank the merchant ship, the Lusitania, killing many Americans were convinced to join the war in 1917. It was the American destroyer that best combated U-boats. However, combat during World War I was not only kept on land and in the sea, but was introduced into the skies for the first time. Airplanes were the third and final major aspect that helped to make World War I increasingly modern. Airplanes were first used for scouting purposes. Pilots fought with pistols or rifles. However, with the introduction of the synchronized machine gun and propeller, pilots could much easier and effectively fight each other in the skies without shooting down their own plane. Airplanes were also used for bombing raids as the war progressed. An ace was considered a pilot who shot down at least 5 enemy aircraft. Eddie Rickenbacker was the most famous American ace who shot down more than 20 enemy aircrafts. The three major aspects that helped to make World War I increasingly modern and unique were trench warfare, U-boats, and airplanes. Gilbert Chesterton, a writer and journalist, once wrote, "The true soldier fights not because he hates what is in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him." These new inventions created many casualties, but also preserved freedom. There was many men and women who risked and gave their lives for freedom during World War I. This freedom now falls onto your shoulders. What are you doing to keep the freedom that they so gallantly died for?